The movie kicks off on a farm with a girl named Pearl, who's dreaming of Broadway stardom. She decides to borrow her mother's dress without permission, and you can guess that doesn't lead to a joyful family reunion. Tasked with the glamorous chore of feeding the cows, Pearl shares her dreams with them, and we can only imagine the cows critiquing her performance. But then, a wild goose appears out of nowhere, and Pearl, in a moment of frustration, decides to give it a taste of Broadway drama by using a pitchfork. Things take an unexpected turn as she takes the deceased goose to the lake, probably hoping to impress the local alligator with her offering. Fast forward to 1918, Pearl's helping her mother shake some corn and the war has just ended, bringing a glimmer of hope. Ruth, her mother, insists she reads the news. Then there's the heartfelt supper prayer. But it's not all sunshine. Pearl administers medicine to her father, who seems to have more ailments than a medical textbook. After reading a letter from her soldier husband Howard expressing his fears, Pearl decides to visit the theater. Now brace yourselves for a rather unsettling scene. Pearl bathes in front of her father, which could rival any cringe-worthy sitcom moment. Later, her mother sends her to town to buy medicine, with strict instructions to cover her face due to a sudden sickness resurgence. Pearl makes a quick pit stop at the local pharmacy, purchases morphine, and heads to the theater. At the movies, she's captivated by dancing girls, takes a swig of alcohol, and reads a pamphlet. Just when you think it can't get more interesting, she encounters a mysterious man in an alley who offers her a cigarette. He's quite the smooth talker, but Pearl has to leave, and he gives her a single frame of the movie she just watched as a parting gift. Talk about cinematic romance. Pearl's eventful bike ride home takes a turn when she loses the frame in a cornfield and finds a scarecrow. What's a girl to do? Climb to the top, hug it, and ask if it can dance, of course. But then, in a twist that wouldn't feel out of place in a fairy tale, the scarecrow turns into the handsome man from the theater. Who knew scarecrows had such hidden talents? Now hold on to your hats because the narrative takes a steamy, unexpected turn as Pearl's encounter with the scarecrow turns explicit. Meanwhile, back at home, Ruth is not happy with Pearl's tardiness and assigns her the less than glamorous task of cleaning her father's excrement. You know, just your typical family dinner conversation. Pearl's bath time thoughts take a philosophical turn as she contemplates whether her father feels pain or is more scarecrow-like. She tests this theory by giving his neck a good squeeze, which seems to stir something in him. At dinner, Ruth's got questions about where the money went and Pearl's got answers about buying candy. But Ruth knows something's up and denies Pearl's supper. The drama continues as Pearl prays for stardom during milking, and Mitzi drops by with a juicy secret about a dance audition that could change everything. In her room, Pearl daydreams about being a movie star, and that night, she sneaks out to the theater again. The projectionist welcomes her to the back room for a chat over a drink. They watch a French film reel that's a tad more explicit than expected. The projectionist has big plans for the future of such films, but Pearl's focused on her own dreams. She even expresses her desire for her parents to kick the bucket so she can explore the world. The projectionist suggests going overseas after the pandemic, which is quite the forward-thinking idea. Sneaking back home, Pearl is met with an unexpected sound, her mother's sobbing. Drama on top of drama. Pearl decides it's time for a scenic outing with her father by the lake, where they call for their trusty crocodile companion, Thedar. Standing by the water's edge, she opens up about her imminent departure and her love for her father. But hold on, the plot thickens as Ruth, her mother, suddenly appears on the scene, demanding that Pearl bring her father back indoors. Pearl, thinking her mother isn't her biggest fan, reluctantly complies, but not without a hint of resentment. Ruth, on the other hand, reveals a philosophical side, acknowledging that life doesn't always follow the script we expect. As Ruth departs with her husband, Pearl stays behind, calling for the crocodile and, surprisingly, stumbling upon a nest of eggs. In a twist of maternal instinct, she swipes one of the eggs, perhaps as a memento of her unique family dynamic. But here's where it gets intriguing. As Pearl reminisces about her husband, she imagines a rather unusual fate for the egg involving his combustion. A peculiar way to remember a loved one, wouldn't you say? Back at dinner, Ruth unveils a pamphlet, initiating a showdown of epic proportions. She confronts Pearl about her little excursion to the movies, and Pearl ends up quarantined in the bunkhouse to ensure she's not harboring any pesky germs. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Pearl confides in Ruth about the upcoming dance audition and her burning desire to discover if she's got what it takes. However, Ruth perceives Pearl as ungrateful, dropping not-so-subtle hints about having witnessed Pearl's private escapades. Tensions rise, and what's a family argument without a knife-brandishing moment, right? While no one gets stabbed this time, Ruth pushes Pearl to attend the audition and experience the same failure she sees when she looks in the mirror. Things heat up even more when Ruth's dress decides to join the action by catching fire during her tussle. A fiery argument indeed. Panicking as the flames dance around her mother, Pearl attempts to douse the fiery situation with water, but alas, it's a little too late. Ruth survives, albeit with some serious burns. Pearl, feeling like the protagonist in a tragedy, decides to take matters into her own hands. She drags her mother down to the cellar, marking a pivotal moment in their tumultuous relationship. Following her confrontation with her mother, Pearl rushes out of the house for a passionate moment with a projectionist. The next morning, she practices her dance for the upcoming audition, determined to make her mark. The projectionist kindly drives her back home, but here's where it gets interesting. When she encounters a soldier at the doorstep, it's a tense moment, and the mask obscures his identity, adding an air of mystery to the scene. Once inside, Pearl tends to her father, who's still perched at the dinner table. She administers his medicine, but then she allows the masked man to enter, and things take an unexpected turn. They head upstairs for intimate moments, but the man starts hearing strange sounds from the cellar. Pearl tries to distract him with a story about a fictional family dog, but he's too sharp to fall for it. The suspense keeps building. Feeling uneasy, the man decides to leave, and Pearl suddenly becomes clingy and paranoid. She starts wondering if he'll take her to Europe, but things take a dark turn when she goes after him with a pitchfork, delivering a series of shocking blows that leave us all on the edge of our seats. After this gruesome act, Pearl decides it's time for some cleanup. However, her father appears utterly terrified, most likely having witnessed and heard everything that transpired. The story takes us even deeper into the psychological unraveling of Pearl's character, creating a suspenseful and eerie atmosphere. In a shocking turn of events, Pearl, now dressed in her finest attire, proudly showcases her outfit to her father before expressing her gratitude. But then she takes a dark and chilling turn by suffocating him to death with a pillowcase. It's a moment of stark contrast, where gratitude and violence coexist. To cover her tracks, Pearl decides to dispose of the man's car in the lake, perhaps hoping that the crocodile might take care of the rest. Upon her arrival at the audition, Pearl reunites with Mitzi, who reveals a crucial detail. They'll only select one girl from each town. Pearl boldly proclaims that it must be her. Sensing Pearl's nervousness, Mitzi suggests a switch in the lineup, a small act of camaraderie amidst the competition. When it's finally Pearl's turn on stage, she steps into the spotlight and begins her dance. The scene unfolds with an electrifying dance number, featuring Pearl alongside women portraying soldiers. Pearl embraces the performance with fervor, showering the captivated audience with flying kisses. The story reaches a climactic peak as Pearl's actions take a surreal and unexpected turn, leaving the audience captivated by the unfolding psychological drama. In a harrowing turn of events, the judges deliver a brutal rejection to Pearl after her unconventional performance, labeling her as ordinary and devoid of the desired qualities. Pearl, shattered by this verdict, experiences a surreal moment where the judges transform into the very people she has killed. She adamantly refuses to leave, proclaiming herself as a star. As the scene shifts outdoors, Pearl breaks down in tears, and Mitzi, noticing her distress, extends a helping hand. Back at the house, Pearl, overwhelmed by her internal struggles, begins to unravel. She confesses her darkest thoughts and actions to Mitzi, admitting to wishing for her husband's death, engaging in infidelity, and even feeling relief at a miscarriage. She expresses profound self-loathing, believing that the farm is her true home due to her perceived lack of talent and likability. In a shocking revelation, Pearl discloses her series of murders, starting with animals, then her mother and the projectionist. Her motivation, an overwhelming desire for love. As Pearl snaps back to reality, she realizes that she has revealed her deepest secrets to Mitzi, who is left utterly dumbfounded and speechless. Mitzi tries to leave, downplaying the situation, but Pearl, disturbed by the thought of Mitzi potentially securing the coveted part, follows her with an axe in hand. In a shocking turn of events, Pearl ruthlessly chases and eventually kills Mitzi, disposing of her body by feeding it to the crocodile. A chilling montage unfolds, revealing Pearl's horrifying efforts to dispose of the bodies. She dismembers Mitzi and feeds her to the crocodile, arranges her decomposing parents at the dinner table, and prepares the decomposing pig for a disturbingly special dinner. The story takes a dark and surreal turn as Pearl's descent into madness reaches its horrifying climax, leaving a trail of horror in her wake. In a surreal twist, Pearl continues her descent into madness, preparing a gruesome dinner using the decomposing bodies of Mitzi, her parents, and the pig. She eerily prays for the meal, and in a disturbing scene, Howard returns home from the war. Shocked and horrified by the macabre scene laid out before him, Howard is greeted by Pearl, who in her delusional state appears untroubled and ecstatic about his return. As the credits roll, the audience is left with an unsettling conclusion to the story. The fate of Howard and the extent of Pearl's madness remain shrouded in ambiguity. The mention of a sequel hints at a continuation of the narrative, leaving room for speculation about the character's futures and the consequences of Pearl's actions. If you enjoyed this video, check out another video popping up on your screen now.